Oh, that's perfect. Hey! Hey you all, welcome to the Mindful Plate. It's Shelly Wellness here, and today we are going to be making a spice blend. Now, this is for those of you who have been cooking for a while, or maybe you're just starting to cook, but your recipes aren't hitting. You know why? Because you're missing flavor. You might be using a lot of dried spices, but it's still not giving you that oomph that you want. So I'm gonna show you how to blend all of God's good natural green spices and herbs and make a delicious, beautiful blend that can season up any recipe you make. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm your host, Shelly Wellness. I'm on this journey to elevate our consciousness around food, and I invite you to join me. On this channel, I'll share recipes created with mindfulness, rooted in wellness. Welcome to the Mindful Plate. So, I'm telling you, this is my favorite thing. It has absolutely revolutionized my cooking, stepped it up in a whole new level, and it's gonna do the same for you. Now, how I came across this was enjoying all the goodness of Haitian and Trinidadian food. So in Trinidad, they make green seasoning, and in Haitian food, they make what they call Epis, which means spice. And essentially, what they would do is they would take all of these different herbs and spices, blend them up, and anytime I ate the food, I was like, what is that? And that's what it was. It was that spice blend. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. Now, everyone has their own formula recipe. Here's what I tend to do. I go to the market and I look at what looks good. And I say, okay, that's what I wanna buy. So you wanna buy the freshest, the best of everything. And you wanna put that all into your blender, and voila, you have a spice blend. So today we're gonna be working with some scallion or green onion. I tend to go heavy on my scallion and green onion because I like that flavor. So we're gonna be adding that into our blender or food processor if you don't have a blender. I'm using my food processor because I like it more chunky. If you use a blender, it's gonna be a lot more smooth. So next we're gonna be using bell pepper. I like the flavor of yellow bell pepper, and here's what I recommend. If you're not sure what flavor you want, try some of the yellow, try some of the red, try some of the orange, try some of the green, taste it out. And then whatever makes your heart sing, add that to your spice blend. I'm also gonna be using some green bell pepper. So I was gonna use fresh garlic, and when I opened it, guess what? The mold got to it before I did. So I'm just gonna add some minced garlic in here, but I do love a lot of garlic, so I'm adding garlic in here. But if I were using fresh garlic, I would probably use 6 to 8 cloves of garlic. So this is the equivalent of that. And like I told you, I really, really love that oniony flavor in my spice blend. So I'm gonna be adding some shallots in addition to my yellow onion as well, and my scallion, so I can maximize on that. And the shallots give a more sweetness to it. I love the flavor of this. And again, if you're trying to figure out what to put in, I really recommend tasting out the individual ingredients because that's gonna give you an idea of what your final product is gonna taste like. Gonna add in my yellow onion. Now you may be noticing that I'm not adding everything in, so I still have some bits and pieces left. And honestly, that's because this is something that you want to build slowly. You don't want to dump everything in because you might find that some things are imbalanced in flavor. So I like to add enough to start and then slowly adjust as I go along. And this is one of those things when it comes to making this spice blend, this just requires you to be present. Now again, like I said, you could have a recipe, but here's the thing about following a recipe when you're making this. You're working with nature. Every crop is not the same. Every harvest is not the same. So if you're using parsley today and then you try to make this maybe 3 months later and you use that parsley, perhaps that parsley may not be as parsley-ish. You know what I mean? Like the flavor may not be as strong. So I always like to work with the ingredients I have in the moment instead of following a recipe. I have a guideline, but ultimately I'm just following my sense of taste, my sense of smell, and just using that to help guide what goes into this. And after all, it's literally a blend of spices, so you can't go wrong. Woo! And then next I'm gonna be using, this is culantro or sharanbini. This is taking the place of cilantro. Now I found lately that when I go to buy cilantro in the store, it's not hitting, y'all. Like, it's barely there, there's barely a flavor. It doesn't smell the way it needs to. But this, oh, this is the best type of cilantro there is. So I'm gonna be adding this into my mix, all of it. And then we're gonna be using some fresh thyme, lots of it. I try to focus on getting the leaves, so sometimes a little bit of stalk gets in there, but I try not to use too much of this. So for you moms out there who have children who are interested in cooking, or you're trying to get them into the kitchen, this is a great recipe to do with them because there's not a lot of cutting involved, which you could also handle if you had to cut anything, but they could do a lot of the prepping of the herbs like I'm doing with this thyme. At this point, our kitchen is smelling so good. So what you see here is I have some watercress. I'm gonna add a little bit of this. Ooh, pack it on in there. And we cannot forget our heat. Now, for those of you who are sensitive to pepper, I understand. You may not like a lot of heat, but here's why we add the heat in there. Because this is a natural preservative. So this spice blend is going to make enough that's going to last us for at least a month of cooking. Now, when I have this, I typically tend to take out what I need and I store it in the freezer if I'm not cooking a lot. If I am cooking a lot, I can keep it in the fridge, and even in the fridge, it could last up to a month. This pepper helps preserve so nothing grows on it or eats it like it did my garlic. But because I'm not crazy, we are only putting a bit of pepper in here. Not the whole thing, because I already know. I like the heat, but I also need to make sure I don't set my taste buds on fire. So I'm just gonna use a little bit. I might add more once I taste it, but I think we'll start with just a piece for now. Now, this is gonna produce a lot of liquid on its own, but you probably will need a little bit of liquid to help move it through. So for that end, we're gonna be adding in sour orange. If you have lime, you can use that. If you have lemon, you can use that. They all add different flavors. I prefer to use sour orange, lime, and or a vinegar, like apple cider vinegar, when I'm making my epis. So remember, every harvest is not the same. So this is the sour orange. If you're wondering how it tastes, sour. It's not sweet like a regular orange. It's more akin to like a lime. However, you always want to taste it because every orange is going to produce a different amount of liquid, so that'll give you an idea of how much you're going to need. Remember, this is something that you can use a recipe, right? I get it, you want a recipe, and I want you to be mindful and present because this is one of those things where you just gotta listen to your taste buds, listen to your good senses to let you know how much you need and if you need to add a little bit of this or a little bit of that. At this point, you probably have a lot of odds and ends, so I recommend that you put all this into a bag and don't throw this away, y'all. This is fertilizer. We have to think when we're mindfully cooking that we literally are eating the goodness of the earth. And what we don't want to do is put it in a bag and throw it away so it could rot in a landfill. So one of the ways that we can give back and show our gratitude for what the earth has produced for us is to take this to a garden, if you have a garden out in your backyard, or a community garden or a local farm, and offer it as fertilizer, all right? I'm also gonna add some salt, and I'm gonna add a little bit of seasoning. I have seen a lot of spice blends being made with things like Maggi cubes. I don't do Maggi cubes because they just have too much extra crap in there that we don't really need in our bodies, but I do seasoning. So I have a Caribbean all-purpose seasoning in here. I have a Latin all-purpose seasoning, and I have some cloves. I'm gonna use 4 cloves because that adds like a depth of flavor as well. Now we have everything in here, so all we're gonna do is start the blender, and then once it starts to break down, we're gonna add a little bit of olive oil just to make sure it's a bit more smooth and cohesive, but not a lot. Again, I know you want a recipe. I don't have a measurement for you right now. All I know is that you're gonna have to eyeball it. You're gonna have to trust what you see and trust what you taste, all right? So this is looking good. This is the texture I want it. Let's see if it tastes like I want it. Oh. Hey, you smell so nice. On the back of my hand. Oh, wow. Remember I told you about that Scotch bonnet? Just enough. If I would have done more, it would have been over. This tastes delicious, actually. I think it just needs a little more salt. Yeah, it just needs a little more salt, but it's there. Let it go one more time, blend that salt. That's it. Oh, that's perfect. That's it. You see, it wasn't about measurements. It's just about using your eye and your good senses to blend up some herbs. Because remember, this is just a spice blend. So when you're cooking, this is gonna be the base of your spice. You're still gonna add more seasonings, but as you cook it, that spice is gonna transform into a depth of flavor that's gonna bring so much life to your dishes. All right, you all, so you see how easy it is to make a spice blend? Listen, this is going to amplify all of your dishes. Whether you are in transition, so you still eat a little meat, or you're fully plant-based, this is going to add that life and that spark to your dish. And remember, don't focus too much on the exact measurements. I want you to focus on your taste buds because every harvest is different. So when you go to the grocery store and you're picking out your herbs and your peppers and your onions, pick the freshest ingredient and then add all that into the blender. And then of course, when you taste it, it might taste a little raw because they're raw vegetables. So remember, add your salt, it's gonna amplify the flavor. And when you cook it, it's going to bloom and deepen all of your dishes. And if you want more recipes like this and you want to see how I use this and other recipes, make sure you're already subscribed to the newsletter because that's where all the goodness is, y'all, every Tuesday in your inbox. I'll see you next time. Mwah. Be well.